Maybe don't know.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to build. 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 This time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I am your host, Chris Hampton. Welcome to episode 20 of the Power Company Podcast, brought to you by PowerCompanyClimbing.com. Before I do anything, and I know I said this a couple of episodes ago, but I'm going to say it again. Big, huge shout out to our patrons. You guys helped us get to our first goal, and we are well on our way to our second goal, which will allow us to purchase some equipment that we can take to the crags and get quick little interviews at the crags and, maybe do something cool with those. So big thanks to you guys. And if you want to become a patron, you can do that at patreon.com/powercompanypodcast, or go to our website and click on the podcast tab, and you can hook that up there as well. I am on my way to Chattanooga from Red River Gorge. We wrapped up our Red River leg of the trip, and it was a wild success all around. My fiance and I both wrapped up our goals into a neat little bow and feel good about moving on. So it's time to hunker down and do some bouldering. Get actually strong instead of just good at paddling, which seems to be what the red makes you. Actually, I stuck to the bouldering side of things this year. I stuck to some bouldery routes that I hadn't done before, and I'm pretty stoked about how that went. Anyway, in Chatty, the whole team will be meeting. So it'll be Blake, Nate, myself, and Paul, and we're gonna just do a bunch of round tables and record some conversations and figure out some cool things for you guys. But that's not why you're here, is it? You're here for Stevie Haston, because Stevie is a bona fide legend. And I was really thankful for his time. We sat down at OR this past summer and had a conversation inside the Salt Palace. So you'll hear some people chatting, the constant buzz of people talking about nothing, which is kind of what happens at OR most of the time. So ignore that. There's not a ton of it, but there is a little. And Stevie Haston's a legend. Maybe best known for climbing 14D in his mid-50s, but those are definitely not his biggest accomplishments. And I'll just let you search out Stevie Haston in your Googler, because it can tell you a whole lot more than I can. And you should definitely check out his blog if you're interested in training, or if this hits you in any certain way. His blog is steviehaston.blogspot.com, and it's filled with exactly what we're talking about here, common sense training. And I had a tough time picking out the quote for the beginning of this episode, because the whole interview is just quote worthy. So I'm just going to let you check it out.
Maybe don't know.
A lot of us old timers realised that a long time ago. When you go on road trips, at the end of the road trip, you're weak. Yeah, you're climbing one grade harder, but you're weak.
This time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
It's like, the block you get when you're red pointing. You can't red point because you want it so bad. I'm at that stage in my diving. I want to go deeper, and because my desire is so great, it's blocking me. It's making me tense.
And the consequences are a lot higher when you're diving, huh?
The consequences are fairly severe.
Yeah.
You can, you can die.
That sounds terrifying.
It's in the competitions. No one's died now for a few years. But if you were doing it by yourself, or spear fishermen, they die quite a lot. Okay.
Oh man.
But it's like soloing. If you go soloing, you stand a high chance of dying.
Yeah, if you keep pushing it.
Yeah, and so normally you climb with a buddy, and diving you climb with a buddy.
Yep.
So
let's talk about your your philosophy for climbing training. That's what I'm really interested in, and I've always been a big fan of your kind of keep it simple philosophy. That to me, if I had to sum it up, seems like it's just, hang from your fingers, lift heavy shit, stretch, sometimes get stronger, sometimes lose weight.
Yeah, that's about it for me.
That kind of how it seems.
Yeah.
Has it always been that way for you?
I was always very strong. I've got very good genetics for strength. I'm a very skillful person also.
Mm-hmm.
It's not being big-headed. It's just I know that. It's good to know your advantages as well as your disadvantages. The philosophy of some of the parts of training have changed, and at the moment people don't really know where they are, because it's thought now that a lot of climbing is much more skillful than we thought. And it's true, it is very skillful. So a large component of your training should be climbing.
Yeah, for sure.
But someone like me and most people, they're going to get blocked very quickly. They're going to learn how to climb. They're going to get to 510 plus, low 11s very quickly, and they're just going to be blocked. And they'll be blocked by their fingers.
Right.
They'll be simply blocked by their fingers. And then you just got to go back, get stronger fingers. With that stronger fingers, you'll make another little progression. You'll have to learn a little bit more skill, and it just goes up like that. It's no good getting it all in one go, because if you get it all in one go, the opposite happens, and you just start pulling like a lunatic, and you forget about your feet.
And then you end up hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will end up hurt.
I know it was an advantage to you that you've climbed. You've got a ton of experience climbing on different rock, different areas. How important do you think that was to your early climbing as far as developing that skill that you talk about?
It was really, really important. I learned a lot in North Wales, where we have 7 kinds of rock within an hour's drive.
Right.
And, on some you learn to pull like a maniac. There's cracks there. There's real hard slabs there on a peculiar rock called slate.
Mm-hmm. Slippery slabs.
Yeah, slippery, and you have to edge perfectly. So it gave me a huge depth of, skill sets. So again, I had the skill sets, but then what's the missing element? The missing element is strength. Mm-hmm. It's stamina. It's whatever that route requires.
And it's different for everybody, right?
It is unfortunately different for everybody, but everybody then has to address this lack of whatever they're lacking in.
Yeah, for sure.
So they got to get going.
Yep. How has your training changed as you've gotten older? Because you're 50 what now?
59, I think. Yeah, 59.
59, and you're still climbing at the upper reaches of.
I'm climbing 14A when I want, but I'm less powerful than I was a couple of years ago. But it's by design in some ways, because I don't need that power. But if I went to France or Spain, I think I'd get it back. I'd make a good job at it, get it back in 6 months. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it might take me a year, but I could get it back. When I say a year, people get frightened, don't they?
For sure.
They want it.
That sounds like a long time to dedicate.
It sounds like a long time to most people, but for me, it's nothing.
Right.
I'll just get it back. I'll just train. I'll disappear into my shed or whatever I've got, and I'll just train. I was quite shocked going to the Frankenjura, a year ago, how strenuous it was there. You have to pull.
Yeah, on little pockets.
On little pockets.
Yeah.
Little open-handed pockets. And, you have to train for that aspect. If you go to Spain, you have to train some power stamina. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, so for you, it's just a kind of a constantly revolving thing. Like, I'll train up what I need for the next objective, and then I'll just keep going after that, right?
Yeah, one of the things, it's a bit maybe easier for me and a lot of others, is that, there's muscle memory. The more sports you've done as a young kid, the more you're able to move. One of the things we're seeing at the moment, I think, is a lot of girls being really good at climbing. Mm-hmm. And they've often got a small history in, gymnastics, girl gymnastics.
Right.
It's really obvious when you watch them. And, that's the side that the guys don't have.
Yep.
They just don't have it. And yet, do they address this? Do they like sort themselves out? No, they continue to climb like men. They continue to climb like burly men.
Yep. I think it's trending more toward moving better,
Yeah, it is.
but it's definitely got a long way to go. You're right.
It's got a long way to go, you know. And then if you watch a real master climber like, you know, Francois Legrand from France, who won numerous competitions, you know, he can still teach anyone, you know.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what he is. He's the French team teacher.
Yep.
You know,
And he's a technician, just
He's
a brilliant
super,
technician. Yeah.
he climbs so superbly, you know.
Yeah, I use him as an example all
Oh,
the
you
time
do?
when I'm talking to people about footwork.
Yeah.
Like, go online and look up Francois Legrand and watch him climb.
Yeah.
You know, it's so smooth, so technical,
It's perfect.
all the time.
Yeah. He wasn't the strongest guy out of the shed, but he was, you know, he often got to the top.
So since you know, as you've aged, has the frequency of your training changed?
Well, there you go. That's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because how often do I train? I might train once every 5 days. I might, you know, I can still gain if I train once in 6 days.
Right.
Even though I'm a lucky genetic person, I don't think climbers rest enough. And they still make gains, but not muscular and strength ones, because they're making gains at skill.
At skill, climbing skills.
Yeah.
Right.
The more skillful they are, the more, you know, the less force they have to use. But they're getting weaker some of the time. They're actually getting weaker. They're succeeding on the problems, but they're getting weaker. And a lot of us old timers realized that a long time ago. When you go on road trips, at the end of the road trip, you're weak.
Right.
Yeah, you're climbing one grade harder, but you're weak.
Yep.
And if this goes on for too long, you know, you'll go backwards.
Yeah. Do you have a way to gauge that, or is it just you can feel it? You just know it?
In the old days, I would take a fingerboard around with me and some weights, and I had very specific, you know, scores to reach.
Right.
And I would know I was going backwards or, you know, just staying, you know, where I was.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I used to weigh myself, you know, every 2 days.
And when you come back to your home area, could you tell the difference?
I would have certain, you know, like when I lived in France, I had 6, you know, pull-up boards, and I knew exactly where I was on each hold.
Right. So you had standard metrics that you kind of
Yeah.
always came back to and
Yeah.
said, if I
Yeah.
can't do these, I need to get stronger
Yeah.
again.
How many one arms can I do on, you know, the left? How many one arms can I do on the right? How long can I hold a front lever for? I had it all
Right.
written down. And I'm not like a write it down kind of person,
Yeah.
but I had all of these things written down, you know?
Yeah. That's good to do. I'm not either. I don't keep nearly as good of notes and as good of track as I should. But I do have some of those metrics, and I do know where I
Yeah.
should be. So
That's it.
That's important to
You
have.
should know. Yeah.
yep.
You should know the maximums, and then you should look at some other people, some of your friends, and try and judge them too.
Yeah, for sure.
See how strong they are exactly. I got into a load of trouble, you know, a couple of years ago when I interviewed Mr. Ondra, young Mr. Ondra,
Yeah.
and I said he was really weak.
Yeah, and I think you're right.
He was weak.
Yeah.
He's a lot stronger now, but that guy was so much weaker than most of my friends and myself.
But his skill level and his
It's-
speed
yeah.
was so high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still a genius, that boy.
Yeah, for sure.
That young man now.
Yeah. And I think that's important to be able to recognize those weaknesses in even the strongest climbers. You know,
Yeah.
it's important for everyone to see that Adam Ondra has, you know, he's got a soft spot. He's got a weakness.
Yeah, which he's addressing.
And he's addressing now.
He
right?
really is addressing it, and he's got stronger, and he will do 9C.
Yep.
He will break that magic barrier, I think. He's trying it at the moment, and we'll see anyway.
Now, do you ever look at the science of training and then just do you distill it down, or do you just ignore it, or how do you keep this simple philosophy with things constantly changing?
I've got a very long history in sport. I was a runner when I was a kid, and I got into a lot of trouble with my running training because all the running protocols and all of the sport protocols are based on people who take drugs.
Right.
And
That's a good point.
yeah, and this is what most sportsmen don't understand. If you're really, really good at a sport, it means you're chemically enhanced. if you're chemically enhanced, you don't need very much rest or recuperation.
Right. And then all those numbers are skewed.
Yeah, everything is really, really wrong.
Yep.
And that's why I didn't become the runner that I wanted to become, because they have you running, quite serious amounts of running, on days you should be flat on your back.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. And,
Back to your rest is the most important part.
How can you get better if you can't grow in those or regenerate?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at running protocols today, you'll know that there's something really, really wrong with them.
Yep. And what about, I mean, climbing training is kind of, it's very, very young, still very dumb compared to a lot of training. But it is growing, and there is research being done.
There's a lot of research being done on the quiet, yeah.
Yeah, are you paying any attention to that stuff?
Yeah, it gets sent into me by my friends, and you know, I try and keep up with it, but it's hard to tell whether a lot of it's effective, because then you'd have to do, you know, what they're telling you to do, and that would take a long time.
Yeah.
Whereas what I do always works for me.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you read that research and really try to distill it down, it almost always leads you back to the simple things that are part of your philosophy.
Yeah, and they tell you to rest. And then the guys that do those protocols, they won't rest. They'll disobey what's being said.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is, when you look at people who train now, there's a lot of success from people who are being trained, and it's because they need to obey. They need to obey, you know, the rest cycles.
Yep.
Left to their own devices, they won't rest.
Yeah, it's really hard to make climbers rest.
Yeah.
I mean, we love this. We love climbing, so
Yeah,
we
it's
want
great.
to do it all the time.
Yeah, climbing is great.
But it's
But
not good
if
for
you do
us.
it all the time, you won't succeed all the time. So you've seen a lot of success with trainers, and kind of climbers are a bit more controlled by another person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the normal way in sport,
Yeah.
you know.
Have you followed down any paths of, you know, trying some new training that didn't work out?
Yeah,
And you've
I
just
have.
taken it out entirely?
lots and lots of times I've trained in the wrong way. You know, one of the big problems on routes is, you know, like power stamina, or just, it's kind of stamina really at a high level. And it might be the trickiest area of climbing. You know, someone genetically gifted, the strength won't be a problem.
Right.
But that power stamina element is really what kind of typifies a lot of routes. You know, it's
Yeah, it's often the failure point for people.
yeah, Sayers, you know, 30-meter pitches, you know, pretty hard for like 20 meters or 25 meters. It's like, it's a killer. It's really hard to train for. Really hard to train for. You know, that's where I've failed tons and tons of times.
Yeah, and I think there's a mental component to that kind of training. Like we were just talking about with diving, it's hard for you to learn the relaxation when you're diving, but you're really good at it with climbing.
Yeah, I am very good at air climbing. In diving, I'm absolute rubbish. But
Was it always that way with climbing? Were you just naturally good at it?
No, I had to make it less important. You know, I'm a very passionate person. The more you want something, the less you're going to be able to get it. It just tightens up your mind. The more pressure you put on your mind, the more it's not in control of your body.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you need to be halfway. Your mind has to be relaxed. Otherwise, it just tenses up and it slows everything down. The movements have to be subconscious. And the more stress you put on yourself, the less subconscious they become.
Right.
And everything just gets really screwed up.
Yeah. Was there anything that you did that helped that process along, or was it just the experience?
I used to climb a lot, and I used to climb with people who were better than me. And clearly, the job they had to do was less because they were better than me. But I realized that for me, I'd just run through the moves, or, you know, think some nice thoughts, disengage my brain.
Right.
It's just normal relaxation, normal yoga.
Yep. And I think that climbing with people who are better than you is huge, because you there's a new paradigm. You know, you start to feel like, oh, maybe this grade isn't this crazy hard thing that I thought it was.
Yeah, and again, you're setting up climbs on a pedestal where you're saying that they're really difficult. That's not what you want to do.
Right.
It's almost a kind of self-delusion. You have to say that they're not hard. But then after they take you 10 days and you still haven't got anywhere, then, you're creating a problem for yourself. You probably overreached, your ability, and it's time to bring your aspirations down to a more sensible level.
Yeah. How much do you think your general lifestyle plays into your still being able to climb at a high level, still being able to, perform in any sport at a high level at 59?
It's getting more interesting because some people, they look to me and they go, well, Stevie can do it, I can do it. And that's really helped. If you look at Ben Moon just did a 9A
right
at 49. I did one at 50. I did one at 55 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of realizing that a lot more is possible than we realized. And we don't know where these kind of limits are now. We don't.
That's good.
And my lifestyle is it's built around me enjoying my body in sport.
Mm-hmm.
I don't work very much, and it's a bit haphazard, my life, but at the end of the day, I don't want to work. I want to do my sport.
Yeah.
I want a little bit of money to do my sport. I want to go climbing. I want to swim. I want to do a bit of a trail running when I'm in the right place.
Right. And you've cultivated that over years.
Yeah, I've been doing that all my life.
Right.
All my life. But some other lucky people have too. If you live in a nice place, Boulder, Salt Lake City, you can have a lot of those things too.
While still working and while living the normal grind.
Yeah. The 5 to the 9 to 5 rather, and you can still do it in Salt Lake or Boulder.
Yeah. Is there anything that you think is particularly important other than rest that we already talked about for the aging? Yeah,
there's
athlete?
A few areas where you can get a couple of percent. Yoga's important to me, but some kind of form of stretching is very important for people.
Mm-hmm.
You can get maybe at least 5% more out of your climbing. Nutrition is the same. It's more important if you've got really lousy nutrition. If you eat really bad, you'll get better by eating really well.
Right.
And then you have to seriously look at your weight. You have to be brutal about how heavy you are. Mm-hmm. You have to be brutal about how masculine you want to look. Yeah.
Yep.
Men have got a real hang up about, like looking like a man. You don't really want to look like a burly man if you're a climber.
Right. And
that's a big barrier to a lot of men. And girls have a similar barrier. They don't want to look, burly. But I happen to think that a strong-looking rock climbing girl is very attractive.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah? And, one of my problems was I was a very masculine guy and I wanted to look like a man.
You're kind of a burly build.
Yeah,
anyway.
My background, in the Mediterranean, with macho and all of this. And I realized very early on climbing in France that it wasn't the kind of the UK look as well, power thing. It was more of a sustained, clever stamina climber that got up the routes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we got, yoga or stretching, we got nutrition, and don't drink alcohol.
Right.
There's another 5%. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol's great, but it will seriously screw up, how you take in nutrients.
And it's hard to stick to those things.
It's very hard, but if you want the results, you have to do it. So you get a few percent from each. It adds up to quite a result. You know. Then after you get your good result, your good red point or your good holiday, have a few drinks. Relax.
Yep. Yeah, all things in moderation is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. But if you really want the good results, it's not moderation, man. You have to
hammer in on it.
Hammer it. Zero in on your weight. Look at it. Be ruthless. But you don't have to be ruthless. If you stay at a really low weight, you're gonna screw your body up.
Yep.
Stay light for 1 month maximum. That's it.
You said something really interesting in a blog a while back about sometimes you want to lose weight, sometimes you want to be stronger, and there are different routes that require different things. What's your take on that?
Well, if you're trying to, make muscle, which very few people need to do, you have to slow your metabolism down. It's just a physiological thing. You need to eat food and you need to slow everything down. And I think a lot of climbers find that hard because they're not like that. They want to climb every day.
Yep.
But if you want to build some muscle up, you have to slow everything down. But when you want to lose weight, you want to maybe build your metabolism up, be a bit faster, and that means a lot of climbing too. You can do it by a lot of climbing.
Is there a particular kind of route where you think you want more muscle? You want to be stronger?
It would be power climbing like Frankenura, or big caves like where I used to hang out.
All right, big steep pools. On
Yeah,
things.
if you can't do a one arm front lever and stuff like that, you have to be really gifted, like Andra or someone. Some of my mates are very, very good, but most of my mates who climb font 8B, they can all do one armers.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a kind of small level of strength.
Yep.
That's it. The little girl from Colorado, she can do 3 one armers.
Alex.
Yeah.
Puccio. Yeah.
She's a strong little girl, isn't she?
Yeah, she is.
She can do a little front levers and her one arms.
Yep.
Well, for me, that's a minimum level of power.
And do you think you should train to do those one arms, or does it come along with getting stronger for climbing?
Some of my mates got to one armers just by climbing in the Frankenura for a couple of seasons.
Right.
But I guess they might have been gifted. I trained for one armers when I was 14, I suppose.
And you felt like it transferred over to your climbing pretty well.
It didn't immediately because in some ways it made me climb better. But my footwork wasn't in step with my power.
Gotcha.
But it meant that my power was always there. So when I did find my technique eventually, everything did come together.
Yep. As long as you're looking for it, I think you have to.
You have to stay on top of it. Power is ruthless. It's ruthless. You don't want to let it be in control of you. You want to be in control of your feet. That's what you want to be in control of.
Yeah.
You want to be in control of your panic. Your panic.
Yeah, and I think Chris Sharma is a good example of that. When he was younger, it certainly looked like his power was in control of him.
Yeah.
But he's grown into it now.
He's
and
become
he
a
still has
better
that
climber.
power. Right,
A much better climber. He used to get up things on strength and tenacity and willpower. And, in the last few years, he's been getting up things on a lot of skill. A lot of skill.
I know you're not in your climbing season in Malta right now, that it's mostly diving, and that's what you're psyched to be doing right now. Do you have other goals for climbing?
Yes. Next year I want to climb 514B. It's not just a number. It's just I think I should do it when I'm 60. And
Awesome.
I've got a couple of climbs on my island. No, not a couple. I've got hundreds of new routes to do.
Yeah.
And some of them will require a lot of power stamina. 50-meter pitches, very like Soyuz. And I've been frightened of opening a couple of the cliffs there because I really hate training for that kind of route. But now I think, okay, I'll just train for those routes and, see what happens.
Yeah.
And,
well, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate your simple approach, and it's been great for me because I can get caught up in the minutia and the science of it and want to start changing little things. But it's really great for me to come back to your blog and just go, all right, I just need to keep it simple.
Yeah.
That's what it all comes back to anyway, eventually.
One of the simple things is just having good habits. Train 3 times a week. Don't worry about it too much. Have a good time, train 3 times a week. Train twice a week. But train.
Yeah.
Train.
Yeah, I think
you don't have to hang on those little edges for precisely 7 to 8 seconds. You don't.
Right.
You don't. Those kind of protocols don't mean anything. But train your fingers. Make sure you're kind of around the right mark. There's overtraining and undertraining. You know, if you're going to do a marathon, you don't have to do a marathon every day.
Right. Sure.
You know,
You need to train the components of the
the
marathon.
components of it.
Yeah.
If you train a marathon every day, you'd be dead. You know.
Yeah, you'll never get to the actual marathon.
No. I mean,
All right. Well, man, I appreciate you taking time out. I know it's crazy here at OR, so
it is crazy. I bet it's motivating also because you see all these great people.
yeah.
I just saw Lynn Hill. She looks great.
Yep.
You know, I won't say old because she's obviously 21 years old. You know, but she's an inspiration.
She's
you
eternally 21.
Yeah, you see Chris Sharma, you see Stefan Glaufix.
Yeah, I saw you were hanging out with both those guys the other
Yeah,
day.
you know, those two guys really inspire me. You know,
Yep.
I was talking to Stefan. Stefan's one of the great European heroes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were talking about an older guy called Bernd Arnold.
Oh,
you know,
yeah, from the
East
Franken-Euro, right?
East German guy. And he was, you know, he's inspiration for me and Stefan.
Is he from the Franken-Euro or
No, he's from Dresden,
that's where
Elben
the
Sandstone.
Right, exactly.
My last new route was named after him. It was called Bernd.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah. And so you go into Bernd's old house in East Germany. What do you see? You see fingerboards.
Right.
You know,
Strong fingers.
35-year-old, 40-year-old fingerboards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's not an accident that Bernd was a good climber.
Right. He doesn't need to have pulleys and timers and all those things.
No.
He just
He just used to hang out there.
hangs on his fingers
Yeah.
and gets strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lives in a great place, you know, with cliffs around him. So that was it.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Man, thanks for sitting down. I really, really appreciate it.
A pleasure, man. Pleasure.
Thanks, Stevie.
Yeah.
You feel your cheeks getting hot and that little sting? That's because Stevie Haston is blunt and we're talking directly to you. And me too. I need it sometimes as well. I like to go to Stevie's blog and get a dose of keep it simple, fucker, because we like to complicate shit. All these complicated reps and schemes and everything else we do aren't always necessary. So keep that in mind. Keep it simple. It's a good way to approach things. And definitely check out Stevie at his blog, steviehaston.blogspot.com. Reach out to him with any questions you have. He's a great dude. And big thanks to Stevie for sitting down with me. I really, really appreciated it. Okay, I got to get onto the road, get the rest of the way to Chattanooga so we can get this thing going. If you guys want to help out, you can do that. We have t-shirts available on the site now. Pick those up for stocking stuffers for your favorite climbing partner. Let them rep your favorite training company. Why wouldn't you do that? And also become a patron. You can do that at patreon.com/powercompanypodcast. What that does is help us keep this thing commercial and sponsor free, and it's going to help us grow it. We're really excited about that. And maybe the best thing you can do is share us on your social medias. You can find us on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Pinterests. And you can share us on your Twitter, but we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
This time, to build power. This time 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 to build.